welcome to At the Coach's Table Live. I'm executive coach Phyllis Reagan. I'm also a leadership psychology expert and a former studio exec turned high impact coach. I primarily coach clients coming out of the entertainment, media, sports, and creative industries, and I'm helping them to lead with confidence, clarity, so they can have the impact they desire. Today, I'm going to be talking about executive presence. I'm sure you hear about it all the time. Most people find it to be kind of a nebulous concept, like what exactly is it so that I can make sure I'm doing it? Or if they hear somebody does have strong executive presence, they try to peel it apart and understand what are those fundamental dynamics that that person has that makes them good at it so that they can duplicate it. But we're going to talk about what it's not, because executive presence, often people believe that it's really about how strong someone comes across, the kind of commanding the room type of executive presence. And executive presence is actually the opposite of that. It is a calm, cool, collected approach that you have to when you're presenting to others, how you communicate, message, and really how you present yourself. So how do you get to that? You might be in an org, by the way, where you notice that the people that seem to get all the attention are the ones that suck up a lot of the air in the meetings. They might not even really be problem solving or solutioning for the right things. They act like they know what they're talking about, but you sitting there quietly or noticing that they're just taking up airtime and really not adding to value. And that might make you wonder, like, okay, is that what executive presence is? Is that what I have to be doing? I have to be the loudest, most active voice at the meeting, maybe a little bit chaotic with my communication, but I'm verbalizing it. Is that executive presence? So I don't want you to go to that extent. Sometimes people, because they get rewarded in orgs for being an extrovert, that can make people think that that's the type of executive presence that they want, and it doesn't feel authentic to them. So authentic to you might be that cool, calm, collected, composed person. That presence really is executive presence. So let's be very clear about that. What's happening to you though? Let's talk about when you're walking in a room and you can't seem to show up the way that you want to. You can't feel calm. Maybe you find that you trip on your words, or you can't get to your best thoughts, or people just aren't getting a really good sense of your leadership, so it's not coming across the way that you want to. You want to first look at what's happening in your brain, and I always start there with my clients. What happens? So for many of them, they find that there's a lot of thinking that's happening. And the thinking typically is sounding like, I have nothing to contribute, my point of view is not that interesting, someone already said it, why do I want to continue with that? Someone has a better idea than I do, I don't want people staring at me. What if I make a mistake and they'll remember that about me? There's senior leadership in the room, what are they thinking about me? They start mind reading and they start guessing what people are thinking about them that probably there's no evidence to support, and they dim themselves down. So what happened in that moment, those kind of thoughts are running away and derailing your ability to really come across calm and collected. So you want to know that what's happening in your brain in that moment is that you just fired off your amygdala. It's now in control. It's over the show. It's leading your show, it's driving that car, and you're out of control now. And it's going to be really focused on the emotional aspects of you being there. You might notice that you are sweating, you're nervous, your thoughts are jumbled, you can't get to your thoughts. So there's actually some emotional deregulation that's happening, and that is your amygdala. What you want to do is to calm down your amygdala so that your prefrontal cortex can come back online. And that is where your strategic thinking takes place, your decision making, problem solving, creative thinking happens in that part of the brain, but you can't access it the way you want to if your amygdala is running the show. So before you go into situations, if you know that they're going to be a trigger, Like, you know that there's certain people, like senior leaders, certain types of meetings with certain cross-functional partners, perhaps, certain scenarios where you aren't showing up the way that you want to. So that executive presence is definitely dimmed down. You know now that those are your triggers, so you can do some pre-planning for it. Your pre-planning is to ground yourself. So you really want to deactivate the amygdala, and that's going to require you to ground yourself. That can mean taking deep breaths before you enter into a meeting. So if it's virtual, if you have time before one meeting ends and another begins, use the time not to scroll and look at what people have left for messages or responding to work requests. Really use it to ground yourself. Take your breaths that are going to make you feel more centered and present. And there are lots of different types of breathing exercises can do that. So for one, you might have heard of box breathing. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, so you're inhaling for 4, you're holding for 4, you're exhaling through your mouth for 4, you're holding at the bottom for 4, and you repeat. And I like my clients to do that for 5 minutes, and they really do feel like, okay, I'm calm, I'm clear. That's the feeling, because your amygdala is no longer activated. And so when you go into the meeting now, you're going to have access to the parts of your brain that is going to allow you to really get to your best thinking, your best thoughts, and to communicate in a way that really comes across as you being a sound and balanced leader. So that's one exercise that helps. Another breathing exercise, and you can look these up online, there's a thing called balloon breathing, and they teach this now. I love this. They teach this now to kids that are in preschool to help them, and it will help you if you're an anxious person, for one, and going into these kind of situations and meetings can make you feel anxiety. So it's balloon breathing, and it's actually, expanding your rib cage like you would with a balloon, and then contracting it. So you can try that kind of breathing, but some kind of breathing exercise that's going to really get you more in the present and deactivate your amygdala. Now, once you have that, you want access to thoughts that are going to be helpful. So you're not going to try to do this right before the meeting. You want these thoughts accessible to you in those settings. So before all these scenarios happen, it's really good to have reframed thoughts that are going to help you. Reframed thoughts can be, instead of saying to yourself, I'm going to bomb at this, or no one's going to take me seriously, you could then say, I have a real strength with asking great clarifying questions. I'm going to use that in this meeting, and I believe it'll benefit someone. So that's you tapping into the truth of you, truth of your strengths, and the truth of how you can contribute as a leader in that meeting or in that setting. You want to have those thoughts available to you, because when a stress trigger shows up, it's really hard for your brain to access these reframed thoughts. You don't want to try to get to them or try to develop them in the moment. You want to have those already developed, and you've practiced them. So practicing them is saying them to yourself quite often. I have my clients put their reframed thoughts somewhere around their computer monitor so they see it all the time and they practice it. You want to say it, you want to read it, and you want to say it out loud, so your brain actually has different ways to connect to these new thoughts. So do that before these scenarios. Then I tell my clients, let's not jump all the way into the deepest part of the pool with this. How about you practice it? So if you're going to try to show up differently, say in a senior leadership meeting, and that feels like a high risk setting to you because it does make you feel off when you're in it. You are concerned about the senior leaders that are in the meeting or the colleagues that are there. Then you want to start with low risk settings. And a low risk setting could be, I'm going to practice this when I'm in these certain types of project meetings, or I'm going to practice it with these cross-functional partners. I'm going to practice it maybe in meetings with my direct reports. So that's the setting, and you're going to challenge yourself to set goals for those low risk settings. My clients start off with goals like, I'm going to contribute, and by doing so, I'm going to ask one clarifying question, and then I am actually going to contribute with one value added statement in that meeting. There's something about setting the goal that really makes you focus in on making yourself show up in ways that you normally would dim yourself. So now you're holding yourself accountable to do this, but you're also doing it in a way that won't overwhelm you and won't overwhelm your brain in those low risk settings. Once they become comfortable to you, then you go to a mid-range kind of risk. That might be a different type of meeting. It might be different people in the meeting. And then you do the same thing. You set the same kind of goals. I'll ask 2 clarifying questions in this meeting, and you're ready for them, right? You've done the prep work. You know what you might ask. Maybe there's an agenda. You've looked at it. You know what is going to be important for you to say in that meeting, and you keep yourself accountable, and you practice this until this becomes comfortable. And then you go to the high risk setting. So now you're ready to challenge yourself in this meeting that before made you very uncomfortable or anxious or quiet. And you're going to set the same kind of goal. And you start off small. In this meeting, I'm going to ask one clarifying question. Maybe the next time I'm going to contribute with one value added statement. And the more you do this, the more comfortable you become. And you'll notice that the thoughts that you had before, they're just not showing up for you now. You have these new, accessible, reframed, positive thoughts that are supporting you. You've set goals and you've worked on them in low and moderate risk settings. You're becoming comfortable with the practice, and your brain is not going to be on threat mode now. When the amygdala is in charge, it's looking for threats. It's looking for ways that something's going to harm you. You have now calmed this down. You're practicing the deep breathing, calming yourself and your amygdala down. Threat response is going down. You are now getting more comfortable and you're ready for those higher risk settings. Now you can show up with that calmness and that clarity and the confidence that you want. That's what's going to demonstrate your executive presence. Another thing I want to talk to you about are people that may not dim themselves down in those meetings. They may actually over-communicate, over-talk, over-verbalize. When they're not really saying what they want to say, when they're not contributing a value, any valuable statements, any valuable ideas, but they feel this pressure. I've got to say something to look valuable to the people in the room. My clients can have that as a challenge. And when they do, they practice what's called WAIT, W-A-I-T, and that is, why am I talking? You need to have a criteria for talking if you're someone that just, processes out loud, which a lot of extroverts do, by the way. So if you have a WAIT statement, you have a criteria for certain meetings. So if it's your senior leadership meeting that you have on Fridays, you're going to have a criteria for why you're going to actually say something. So you're going to add value because you're going to provide a new insight, perhaps, or you're going to ask questions that are going to deepen everybody's understanding of what they're problem solving for. You need that criteria for why you're going to talk. Once you have that criteria, then when you have that impulsiveness, that need to really say something, you then pause. You can do a deep breathing exercise as well. Take a nice, clean, clear breath and ask yourself if what you're about to say fits into the criteria that you set. If it's a no, then you don't say anything. If it's a yes, it's a green light. Go ahead and say something. So these are the kinds of tools that are going to help you come across the way that you want to with your executive presence. So if you're dimming down, feeling small, not really contributing the way that you want to, then you want to practice the tool of setting those low, medium, high risk goals so that you can start practicing and showing up the way that you want to. If you're over verbalizing and over communicating and processing out loud, then you want to practice the WAIT tool. So there's something for everyone with this. This is going to allow you not to be the loudest voice in the room that's not really contributing. It's going to allow you to show up with presence. You're not going to be dimmed down. You're going to show up with conviction. You're going to show up with a strong POV, and you're going to do it in a calm, cool, collected way. Well, if any of this resonates from you, please drop me a comment. I'd love to know. If you have any more questions about executive presence or any of the tools that I've mentioned, I go live every Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays. On Wednesdays, I'm talking about everything to do with mindset and neuroscience that will support you. Fridays, I'm talking about leadership strategies like executive presence, influence, decision-making, delegation. And then on Saturdays, I'm talking about wellness, everything to support you so you can show up the way you want to and live a life that feels really grounded and meaningful. So I'm talking about topics like burnout and also topics like self-care. This coming Saturday, I'm going to be talking about the hidden burnout symptoms you may not be aware of, so stay tuned. I go live 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you can catch it on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere that you like to get your social media. You can find me there and watch my lives. Well, thanks for coming on and listening to me. I hope it was helpful to you. And if you ever need anything or have any questions, please go to my website, Phyllis Regan, Reagin